After Otis Redding passed away in 1967, Phil Walden, really found himself without a top artist in his roster of soul acts, and it really slowed down the scene in Macon. Otis was really the de facto leader of the scene here, and it hit everybody pretty hard when he passed away. But there was a studio being built at that point downtown. It would eventually become the Capricorn Sound Studios, but it was originally called just the Otis Redding Memorial Studio after he passed away. And there was a studio band hired with some members of the Hourglass, which was a band that Duane Allman and Greg Allman played in. So they came over with the intention of recording soul acts, and that never really worked out. As I said before, Phil Walden signed Duane Allman from Rick Hall and Muscle Shoals and brought him to Macon really to form a band around Duane Allman. And it ended up as a six-piece. It was originally going to be really a three-piece, but grew and grew, and then more of those type bands, self-contained bands that wouldn't need a studio band, started moving into Macon, and that's really how it all started. The Allman Brothers was really the forerunner, and they're really the top artists on Capricorn Records, and they're the catalyst for a lot of those other type of bands coming into town. The sound didn't have a name. It became known, unfortunately, as Southern rock, but I think that's a really limiting term. It brings up images of rebel flags and dumb rednecks, but it was a lot more than that. Phil Walden always he's quoted as saying, it's like calling it rock because all music is from the South. And Southern rock, the rebel flags were used at a point to market the music, especially overseas, and attention was really drawn to that, to the southernness of the sound. But it was a lot more than what Southern rock has become known as. This is the Big House Museum. We're at 2321 Vineville Avenue, and this is where the Allman Brothers Band, members of the band lived from 1970 to 1973. The band found it after moving to Macon in early 1969. Members of the band sort of lived here and there, downtown Macon and around town, and the bottom floor is set up like just with cases as a traditional museum. Then the top floor, the second floor, is set up, redecorated like the band had it when they lived here. But the bottom floor that has the cases and is the more traditional style museum, it's set up chronologically. We have instruments, stage outfits. We have paperwork that shows the history of the band, lots and lots of posters. Anything and everything that's related to the band from 1968 or so until the present day. This room was used mostly as a rehearsal room when the band was here. Word has it that Hotlanta, the song, was conceived here. And this is really the start of the tour and the start of the chronology of the band. We have a few artifacts from when the band, right before the band began. We also have artifacts from the years 68 to 71, when the band was first getting formed. We are in the second room as far as the chronology of the band goes. We pick up with 1973 and the release of Brothers and Sisters. Brothers and Sisters was really when the band reached their commercial potential, I guess. At Fillmore East had done relatively well, and it was a good representation of the band because it was a live album, and they're so much better live usually than they were in the studio. The Brothers and Sisters had had some of the big hits on there. You had Jessica, had Wasted Words, Ramblin' Man, which is the big one, and you sort of see that country influence at this point. Duane Allman and Barry Oakley have passed away, And Dickie Betts is really coming out as the de facto leader of the band, and like I said before, he's got that sort of country influence in his playing and in his songwriting. And he tells the story that the song Ramblin' Man wasn't really even intended for the Allman Brothers. He says he wanted to pitch it in Nashville because he thought it was too country for what the band was doing, but it ended up on Brothers and Sisters and became one of their biggest hits.
When it's time to leave, then I hope you'll understand that I was born a rambling man.
The success of the Allman Brothers really helped out a lot of other bands, people like Wet Willie or the Marshall Tucker Band, who became two other big acts on Capricorn Records. At that point, they were playing some of the biggest shows they'd ever played, like Watkins Glen, or they played at Mile High Stadium for one of the biggest payoffs at that point. Their guarantee was something outrageous for a band in the mid-'70s. This is our 1975-1976 case, and one of my favorite things in this case is the jacket that you see here, which was worn by Lamar Williams. You can see him actually wearing it in the photo with Jimmy Carter there. This would have been right around, right before he was president, right as he was running, and really it was Phil Walden who had the relationship with Jimmy Carter. In the early '70s, Phil started getting into politics more and more, first at the state level and then, of course, at the national level. And he signed the Allman Brothers Band up to play for several fundraisers to benefit Jimmy Carter's campaign and really helped him out get the money he needed to run for president. The band's success had a huge influence on the town, and Capricorn Records was really big here in town. Obviously, the offices were on Cotton Avenue downtown, and the studio was a few blocks away on MLK. And most folks that I talked to sort of described that 10-year period as sort of a weird dream. I talked to one of the guys who was responsible for building apartments downtown. He says, you know, all the hippies came in and we have to build apartments for them. So it's a real explosion in popularity after the band got big and the record label got big. After the Allman Brothers Band broke up in 1976, the Marshall Tucker Band really took over as the top act on Capricorn, and really within 2 or 3 more years the record label was going downhill, and really the city just sort of went back to its old ways, and almost like nothing ever happened. Phil Walden filed for bankruptcy, and the studio still sits down on MLK, and the live room and control room are basically like they were when everybody walked out and left. Macon's history really is musical history. Even before Allman Brothers Band, even before Otis Redding and the whole soul scene, you know, had people like Emmett Miller, you had people like the Reverend Pearlie Brown, who were from Macon and became popular when they were in Macon. So it's really a continuous musical legacy here, and it's really still going on with the house here, and there's still a great music scene in Macon.